Tips with Toni. Tips with Toni. All about nutrition from your favorite dietitian. Everything you need to digest in your mind. Tips with Toni. Tips with Toni. Making you healthier one bite at a time. Tip with Toni. Woo.
Hello, and welcome to the Tips with Toni podcast. I'm Toni Marinucci, your registered dietitian, helping you get healthy one bite at a time. This next interview is with Sarah Hall. She is a registered dietitian as well, and she's also a busy working mom and wife, and she does a really good job at not just being a mom and being a wife, but also taking care of her health and making it a priority in her life. So if you've been wondering, how do you juggle it all, you definitely want to listen to this. We also talk a little bit about the healthy at every size movement and really get into depth about the BMI and is it an appropriate measure to dictate if you're actually healthy or not? What is healthy at every size? What is a good BMI? Are there other measures to determine if, in fact, you are healthy? And so I think you'll really, really enjoy this episode. I know I enjoyed the conversation. Without further ado, here is the interview with Sarah Hall, registered dietitian. Hi, Sarah. How are you?
I'm awesome. How are you? All the way from Arkansas here.
Did you grow up in Arkansas? I didn't even know.
Yes, I've been here my whole life. I travel a ton, and I've actually been to the Northeast several times. I'm going back in December. But yeah, born and raised here, and everyone always tells me I can get pretty much anything I want because of this accent everywhere I go. And so, yeah, I was raised here my whole life.
I love it. It's so distinct. I love it. I mean, people say that about me from being from New York. I don't hear it, but apparently I have an accent too.
Right.
But so the first question I always ask is just to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and why you do what you do.
Okay. Well, I'm Sarah, and like we said, I grew up in Arkansas. I've been here my whole life, kind of a Southern belle, and I've been a registered dietitian now for 13 years, and honestly, I don't even feel old enough for that. I don't even know how the time has flown. My husband is a coach and a teacher, so he's a busy guy, and he's head boys track coach and does resource math. So we're both in that health kind of field mindset, really helping people grow and stuff like that. We have 2 kids, and they're 7 and 12 now, so I am probably the busiest person on the planet, but we have fun, we travel, and I got started as a dietitian kind of like, long story short, I worked in corporate wellness straight out of my undergrad, and I had what I call a little rinky-dink bachelor's in wellness science. Sorry for anybody that has that, but like I grew to think, what am I going to do with this actually? Like, am I going to be a personal trainer? Like, what am I going to do? And I started working in corporate wellness, traveling, doing wellness testing. And I met my first dietitian. And I was like, man, she's pretty cool. Like, maybe I could do that, And so applied for grad school and, did that for a couple years, traveled back and forth working. So the work ethic thing, and I know we're probably going to get into that, but it has been instilled in me since childhood. But, when I met her and then knowing my growing up, I was constantly on a diet. My mom owned a restaurant. She got diagnosed with diabetes when I was about a teenager, I guess. Me and my sister were twins, and her blood sugar was so high, she basically couldn't see enough to drive herself to the hospital. And we had to drive her to the hospital when we were teenagers to get her diagnosed with diabetes, basically. So between that and then meeting the dietitian later and then getting pregnant in grad school, and my husband and I, we really weren't planning a baby. So it was kind of a surprise. And mama gained 67 pounds. So all that put together, my childhood growing up, meeting the dietitian, gaining so much weight, it really intrigued me to start this career. And in 2006, that's when I became a dietitian and started working in long-term care. Figured out really quick that was not my cup of tea. Mm-hmm. And I landed at a VA hospital, and I actually still work there. But I find, and I love working there. I love veterans. If you're a veteran and you're listening to this, thank you for your service. I just love it. I have vets in my family, but I work with men mostly there, and I really aspired to work with women. Mm-hmm. And that brought me to January of this year, launching my virtual clinic. So kind of a long story, but that's kind of like the shortened version of how I got here where I am today.
Yeah, which I love. And you guys can't see this video, but I just have to note, Sarah, if you've been a dietitian for 13 years, like, you do not look like you've been a dietitian for 13 years. Like, she's so beautiful. You would never guess. And I will say I think nutrition has a lot to do with the way that we age.
Yes, I do too. And I get that comment a lot. And I say all the time, oh my God, I love you even more now. Thank you. Because, like I'm 37, but I seriously, I feel like I'm in my 20s and I feel like I've taken great care of my skin, my hair, and you're so right. I can look back on the times when I was carrying 70 pounds of extra weight, and I have the pictures to prove it. They're actually on my blog. And even now people are like, that's not you. There's no way that that's you. And I'm like, this was patience and this was hard work and one foot in front of the other, but really taking care of my body. And it's almost like I've reversed in age. And it's such an interesting thing to see. Like, if you really do take care of yourself, you sweat a little bit, you drink water, you eat well, 80% of the time, like, it really does impact the way that you age and the way that you feel. And I think it goes a lot into skincare and all that. So yes, Thank you.
You're welcome. No, it's so true. It's definitely true. And I think you not only do you practice what you preach, but you've been doing it while working a full-time job, while being a wife, while being a mother, and doing all those things well. So what would you say to somebody who's listening, who's like, okay, I know I have this weight to lose, but I work full time and I have my kids and I have my husband, and they're just like overwhelmed with the thought of even trying to go on a diet, let's say, or improve their health, whatever you want to call it.
Right. Well, I mean, number one, I think people tend to say they don't have time, but they find their time being filled with other things. Like for me, it was, I know people aren't seeing this video right now, but it was like learning how to perfect the brow game, like watching YouTube every night. It's like, okay, like my brows aren't going to mean anything if I have type 2 diabetes and I'm on insulin, And so with my mom having diabetes, I knew that was a real thing. But I find that a lot of people just don't know how to manage their time, period. That's just the bottom line. And for me, when I was in college, I learned how to manage my time so well because I took a laptop from my day job to my night classes to work in between. And I just learned that every step of my day had to be planned. And I think most people go into their week without a plan. They go into their day without a plan. They don't know what's happening. And it just takes a little step back and planning your time. But I think first and foremost, it's having a reason to even do those things. And a lot of people go on their weight loss or health journey for a very superficial reason. Like, oh, I want to fit in a smaller jean size, or I want to lose a few pounds. Like, well, yeah, probably everybody wants to do that. But it comes down to what will that outcome do for you? I just had this conversation with somebody on the phone earlier. They want to lose 55 pounds. And I said, well, what is significant about 55 pounds? What are you trying to really get out of this? And it come down to preventing diabetes and all these things. And so I think before anybody really commits to managing their time as well as I have to, and I think this goes back to a post I made today too. A lot of people say I should work out, I should eat healthier, but when it turns into I must eat healthier, I must work out, I must do all these things, like time just really becomes irrelevant because you're going to do what you need to do. Mm-hmm. So I feel like the number one thing is people need to fill in a blank and say, I need to lose weight so that I can, or I need to get healthier so that I can, and start thinking long-term too. I don't know who your ideal client is, but I would assume people in your age are a little bit older. Same for me. And so many times those people are just thinking about weight loss when it needs to be thinking about how am I going to feel at the age of 70? Mm-hmm. What am I doing right now to build? I want to be traveling and still on beaches at 70, mm-hmm. Enjoying grandkids that I really don't want to think about yet. But I'm just saying, there's got to be something beyond the superficial what I want and make it more of a long-term thing. And then managing your time becomes a little bit more easy. I run off a schedule. Yes, sometimes it gets messed up, but I've learned over the 13 years of being a dietitian and being an entrepreneur for 3 years now, Not every day is perfect. Weight loss isn't perfect. Not going to lose weight every week. It's just not going to be what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can make progress over being perfect all the time, I find that is very freeing in your mind. But I run off a block schedule. I know we don't have a lot of time to discuss that, but I literally run my day off of blocks and pencil in my workout, pencil in my family time, pencil in my work. All that stuff comes first, and then eyebrow YouTube videos come next.
I love that. But basically, you make it a non-negotiable. You prioritize the things that matter.
Yes.
And then you make time for the other stuff, which it's actually funny that you talk about like the eyebrows and like perfecting them. Cause I was actually with my sister the other day, and my sister's a hairdresser. Her friends are all beauticians. Like they all do these things. And so I was hanging out with them, and I was looking at my sister's friends' eyelashes, and my sister had gotten the eyelashes on, and I was like, you know what? Honestly, mostly I don't wear a lot of makeup. If anything, I like when I wear mascara. I feel like it makes my face better. So I'm like, how much was the implants for the eyelashes? Like I was really inquiring about it, and they were like, I think they were said like $150 or something. And I was like, okay, that's not that bad, whatever. But then they were telling me that every 2 to 3 weeks, I'd have to go back and like keep up with them and put more money. And they said this, not me, although I was thinking it. They're like, she's like, you know what? Actually, I've been thinking about actually putting that money into the gym instead, because I'm realizing that I keep spending all this money on like trying to feel better or look better on the outside, but I could gain that confidence by getting myself to the gym. So I'm signing up for a Lifetime. I don't know if you guys, do you have a Lifetime in Arkansas?
No, we don't have one here.
I'm sure you have like a similar, but Lifetime here is like a glorified gym. It's like $150 a month, where you get like a babysitter service and like a pool and like whatever. But to be honest, I think $150 a month for a gym that's going to have all the amenities is well worth it than like spending $150 on eyelashes.
Right. It's very interesting what people spend money on. And my lashes are $20 a pair. So there's cheaper ways that you can do it and still love your lashes. I have to put them on every day though. But I love when I talk about money, because I feel like money is just like something that people are really scarce about. Mm-hmm. And I think too, they don't really understand. It's kind of like time. You don't really know where you're spending your time until you start paying attention to it. Mm-hmm. And about 3 years ago, we started working to pay off debt, and we've paid off like ungodly amounts now. I don't know, like student loans, cars, stuff like that, like over $100,000. But we did that because I had to start looking at, and this is way off topic, but it's helpful to people.
It's helpful.
Yeah. But I was looking at where I was swiping debit cards. So if anybody's on here listening to the podcast and you're looking at like maybe getting a gym membership or working with a dietitian or something, like go through your bank account for the last 30 days and legit see where you've swiped your debit card. And I guarantee you're going to find the money to invest in whatever it is that's going to change your life. Because I mean, one drive-through Chick-fil-A is like, for a family of 4, like I think we spent $48 the other day at Chick-fil-A. And then I also hear people say, well, I don't have time to cook. I'm just going to go through the drive-through. I waited in Chick-fil-A drive-through for like 18 minutes. Like, bro, you can cook a meal in 18 minutes.
So true.
And so I think our world just, time and money, like it's the two most precious things in our lives, really, you know, that time with family and money to do the things you want to do or have better lives. Or for me, I want to put my kids through college, but we seem to make the most excuses around those two things, you know? Mm-hmm. So
definitely. Yeah, this is such good stuff. So really at the end of the day, it's prioritizing and creating awareness and having a reason why behind it.
Yeah.
Like huge.
You summed it up well. That's it.
Yeah. But,
and staying consistent over time, being disciplined, stay consistent.
Right. And not expecting results, you know, and keeping up with it. Like the maintenance, like I'm sure, like, yeah, it's great. Like you have been paying down debt, but if you picked up an old habit again, or if you were just like, I'm going to stop trying to save, you know, you would easily go back. It is a maintenance thing that you have to kind of keep up with, especially with your and stuff.
Yeah, and when you get in that flow of things, it's kind of cool, though. Yeah, and every once in a while, you know, I backslide and I'm like, oh, I shopped yesterday.
Yeah, but that's like normal. That's why it's helpful to have a coach with your nutrition, right? You're going to screw up, quote unquote, if you want to say that, whatever. We're going to go off a little bit, whatever. But as long as you bring it back and you don't let that saying I say, don't let a slip turn into a slide, right? Like don't basically like take this mistake and like, oh, I screwed up, may as well like just go for it. It's like, oh, I overspent my budget, may as well spend all my money, not so I can't pay my rent. Like,
right.
The logic doesn't make sense.
I think of dietitians as that annoying little sidebar on the interstate when you run off the sidebar and it's like, zzz, like you're off the interstate, you know? We are literally like that sidebar. Like people run off on their nutrition and we just don't let them not. Like I tell my clients all the time, like, seriously, you're going to have a bad day. You're going to feel like quitting. But in the past, you would have just had a bad week and a bad month and a bad year, or you would have just quit altogether or looked for the next thing. But we're seriously like that little sidebar that keeps people back on the diet road. You know?
I love that. That's perfect. That is perfect. Awesome. All right. So a big thing that's been going on recently, which is what I wanted, someone had asked me about this and I felt like you'd be a good person to talk about this conversation, is like there's this big movement on the internet, like hashtag HAES, healthy at every size. And it's a beautiful movement because it's getting people to embrace their bodies, even if they're not perfect, or when I say perfect, and I'm using air quotes, like perceived at what maybe the media wants you to think is perfect or ideal and all that. And so there's a beautiful intention behind it. However, there's also people kind of using it in a way to justify unhealthy eating behavior. So I was just curious what your take on that was.
Yeah, it's very interesting. When we started talking about this podcast, I'd only heard that HEAS, health at every size hashtag, probably in the last month. Like it's something new for me even. And like I've created a movement around it within my clients because of my body type and the things that I've been through, having an exercise eating disorder in college and really just weighing, and the weight would change my mood and my food because I would alter everything based on that scale. And to grow from that, you know, several years ago to where I am now, like I weigh like every 3 months, like I'm not bothered by it. I know I'm healthy. I know I feel good on a daily basis. People never think I'm my age, so obviously something's going on. But I think with this health at every size movement, I've seen a lot of great things, and then I've seen a lot of kind of scary things for people because on Instagram and social media, like it's very confusing for women in particular to know what's good, what should I be doing, what should I be eating. And I think some of the posts are, you know, really good because I saw one, for example, where like say me and you were together and we were taking a picture and we weighed the exact same, but our bodies look totally different. And it was talking about how the scale really doesn't matter. These jean sizes are the same. Our bodies are different. We're both still beautiful women. Mm-hmm. I like that kind of stuff because I think at the end of the day, a woman needs to feel confident from the inside out, no matter what her jean size is. And I've always worn a larger jean size. Like if you tested my BMI, it's overweight, but I don't feel like I'm overweight. I don't have risk factors for being overweight. Yes, I have a booty, but I mean, thank you, Kardashians. You made that popular now. But when I was in high school, I got made fun of for it, you know. But I feel like the flip side of it is like, you know, just promoting bad eating habits and not really taking into consideration what kind of risk factors someone may have, or if they even want to make a change. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a big difference between somebody being happy being in a little bit of a larger body and having curves and embracing them, because curves can be healthy, especially if you have more muscle. I mean, you talked about this on a video the other day. I watched it and you were telling the ladies about metabolism being more with more muscle. It's true. And so some women carry more muscle. But when you get into this topic of, you know, being in a larger body, but maybe having more fat mass and really being concerned about your health, then that's when you need to really consider working with somebody like us, because we can help them still keep their curves and still be happy and confident and love themselves at all sizes, but also take into consideration what their future needs to be like, you know, on a health scale. And so I find that there's just two sides of it. Would you agree with that?
Usually, unfortunately, there's always the extremes. It's like the all or nothing. I completely agree with that. And I think you worded it absolutely perfectly. And also you mentioned, and I think we should talk about this because I've been also meaning to do an episode about this as well, the BMI scale. So the body mass index. So when you go on Google, anybody here, you guys can figure out your BMI. It basically compares your height with your weight, spits out a number and tells you, are you overweight, normal weight, underweight, obese, morbidly obese, all of those things. So there's a scale in which it tells you. I too am overweight on the BMI scale. Honestly, it depends on the day because that's how much my weight fluctuates, right? But I think, it doesn't tell you your body composition. It doesn't tell you if you have a lot of muscle. Like if you put The Rock, this is a good example.
Yeah.
If you put the BMI of The Rock, who's shrizzled, like all muscle, he's going to tell you his BMI is going to put him in the obese category. But it's not true, right? So I find like with the BMI, it's really only helpful in the extreme. So like if a BMI of over 40, that's where we really need to say, okay, because of this weight, you are at a greater risk for things like diabetes and heart disease, and you could be actively losing weight and be, feeling good and moving towards that direction. But I would say it should only be utilized in those extreme cases.
Yeah, I agree. And even with my clients, I never calculate a BMI, period. I just go off waist circumference mostly. Now, at my clinic, I still get those consults, BMI, obese, whatever. But I actually lay my eyes on the patient to see how I feel about the way that they look. And I always do a waist circumference with all of my clients. They do it themselves, but just around the belly button. I feel like strongly the research shows there's just a larger indicator of health and risk based on waist circumference anyways compared to BMI. Because like you said, it doesn't take in anything other than height to weight. Like that's not really telling us what their composition's like. So I just prefer, watching measurements for the most part, because that really tells you if body composition is changing. And if a female has a waist circumference under 35, but her BMI is overweight, like I'm not bothered by that. And she shouldn't be either,
Exactly. Well, also too, just to go off that, from a health standpoint, when people carry their weight closer to their heart, just for the listeners, that's when they're at a greater risk for heart disease, which is why waist circumference is so much better of an indicator than overall BMI. But also I think what's important to note is what you alluded to earlier is you feel good, like genuinely. You're not just saying that you feel good. You're not just trying to pretend like you have all this confidence because, it's a movement or whatever. Like you genuinely feel good. And I think anybody should always try to get to the weight that they feel their best at. And that's also most sustainable. Like I would love to learn a little bit more about your story. You mentioned it a little bit in college where you are struggling with an eating disorder. And so let's talk a little bit about that, because I think the mental health is more important than anything, because it dictates your everything else.
Right. So it was my freshman year and I was in undergrad and I was dating my husband at the time. We met at 18 and 19. So we've been together 19 years, like half our life. But that winter, I actually had a really bad case of tonsillitis, had to be in the hospital for 5 days and had my tonsils out. And I'm telling you this because I lost 30 pounds over Christmas break. But what that did for me was develop this mindset of I was the smallest I'd ever been in my entire life. And I went back to college in the spring semester and everybody was saying, wow, you're skinny. Wow, you lost a lot of weight. Like I had no boobs and no butt. And people were like applauding that. And in my mind, it was like, I don't want to use the word obsessed, but I thought, oh my God, I can't gain this weight back. I have to keep this weight off. And that's where it started for me. And this was way before I even knew what a dietitian was. I was 18 years old in undergrad getting my wellness. I knew I wanted to do something with nutrition or health because I was an athlete growing up. But that triggered me to get obsessed with keeping my weight down like that. And because of that, once I got healed and better, I ate SpaghettiOs the entire Christmas break because it's all I could swallow. And it created these really bad thinking habits, but also bad eating habits of undereating, or, it eventually moved into more of an exercise type bulimia where I would eat 3-4 times a day, but I would work out 3-4 times a day because I felt like I needed to cancel out the calories that I was eating. And I'll never forget the workout. It was Billy Blank's Tybo. That's probably way before your time, but he's still around and his workouts are great, but not when you're killing your body. I was physically exhausted, but I would do it because mentally I thought I need to stay at this weight and I'm eating calories and I need to burn them. And, honestly, it's been so many years ago, I can't even remember how I got over that. But a lot of it was time and just finally getting burned out on exercising so much. And so when I got pregnant, I almost went to the opposite spectrum where I was like, I'm not doing that again, And speaking of dietitians and nutrition coaches, last year I thought, man, I really want to take my fitness to the next level. I've done so much on my own. I've lost 70 pounds. I feel like there's something I'm missing. I really want to have an accountability person and somebody to teach me. And it was not a good fit because he constantly wanted to know my scale weight. He constantly wanted to know my body comp. Like, it put me back in that place. And I kept trying to explain to him, like, dude, you don't understand. I have a history of disordered eating, over exercising, and killing myself to lose weight. And you're making me think that way again. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important as practitioners, and I know you do a great job of this, is assessing the person and their history. And I've had such bad experience with, my history, but also like hiring that trainer last year, like, I was like, this is bad. So you really have to work with people that understand your history and are willing to adjust their program. I know you customize and individualize everything for your clients, and so do I, because the last thing you want is to create that behavior. So I had to cut him off, because I know now where I am, I can assess the triggers for me, but it's really easy to want to slide back into that, or for me, go the opposite where I just don't care, because I don't want to go crazy again. Because now I have 2 kids to think about. Like, I can't be constantly exercising. And so I've learned to find this awesome middle ground. And I think that's what's made me okay with having a little bit of curves and liking it. Like, I actually like it. Like, I don't know the problem with having a little bit of curves, but when it goes either way, where you're having an unhealthy mindset or you've got risk factors for disease, so there's just such a fine line. But that's kind of the story of my past with eating and exercise disorders. It's just, and that's why I can really relate to people. And I see so much of this stuff on the internet, and I'm like, I just know what that can do to people mentally if they're already predisposed to thinking that way,
Totally. Well, thank you for what you do, and the fact that you obviously have found this middle ground for yourself, and now you're teaching other people to do that, where you could have just selfishly just kept it to yourself.
Sure.
But it's really, really great that, people can go to you. Obviously you have the professional background, but also the personal experience. I think that's what makes I think that's what separates good coaches from great coaches.
Right.
Really listening, really understanding, really modifying, and hearing the person out and helping them find that middle ground. So their mental health isn't compromised and their physical health isn't compromised, and being able to find that piece that links it together.
Yeah. And, as women, we have to understand that sometimes we have to change our thoughts and our behaviors and all of that first. And in the beginning, I tell my clients all the time, the first 90 days, you're going to feel better. You're going to lose weight. You're going to have more energy. You're going to learn all these things. But if they've had any, and I seem to that's my ideal client, someone that's had a similar story as me or tried a lot of things and been stuck their whole life. But I let them know up front, I didn't get this mindset overnight. I didn't get to where I am overnight. This is years of personal development. This is years of trying things and just figuring out where the sensible line was for me. And I encourage anybody that's listening to this to take some time and really work with somebody like us that knows, but finding that we can help people find that sensible line to where their behavior and their mind and their mood is not changing constantly. I was talking to a client this morning and I'm I thought of a quote, she was letting the scale dictate everything. I'm the scale should not dictate your mood or your food. And I'm that's good.
that.
Seriously though, everybody and me too, in the past, that's where I come from, but the scale should not dictate your mood or your food.
Love that. I love that. Well, from a mental health standpoint, and also I would say from a physical standpoint, I don't know if this is off topic a bit, but I think so many times we overeat or we eat too much of like, say, fried foods, or we eat like crap or whatever. And then like we physically don't feel well. So yeah, it's going to alter your mood because you made yourself sick. And so it's like, I think it's an component, it's like finding that balance so that it doesn't affect your mood. You didn't like feel like you were sacrificing and like restricting. And now because you ate a little bit of something unhealthy, you feel like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. Versus like the other route of like just feeling like, all right, I'm going to have a party. And you can convince yourself in your head that it's fine. And then 20 minutes later, you're just like, oh my God, why did I do that? Now I have the worst stomach ache in the world.
Yeah, there's just this whole inflammatory process, especially if people are prone to it. And I was talking with a client today, and, you know, she suffers with depression, anxiety, and we're creating awareness around, you know, she calls it going off the rails. That's what she says. But we're creating awareness around what happens when she does that. And she sees decrease in mood. She sees increase in depressive symptoms. She sees her anxiety going up. And it's just true that food really fuels good or bad feelings as far as anxiety and depression and emotion. Mm-hmm. And it can also fuel inflammation and just not feeling good. And I work with a lot of clients that have some underlying cortisol and hormone issues from stress and stuff like that. And a patient or a client like that can take 2 weeks to recover from a weekend of really bad habits versus just having the ice cream one time and enjoying it, you know, or having the Mexican food, which is my favorite, one meal and portion it out on the weekend. But still, it's like, I don't know when our society got so scared of eating. Like, I don't know, that's a whole nother podcast, but it's so true.
Yeah, I know. So true. So true. All right. Well, just because I want to be respectful of your time, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about or mention, or like anything you wanted to get out today before we kind of wrap up?
I mean, I really liked our conversation. I think for anybody that's really listening to this, just knowing that your time will come when it comes to getting the goal that you want and being patient in the process. And sometimes I think it's hard to really look at a process and think of the end, but you got to start with like the end in mind. Like, okay, this is where I really want to get, but then trusting the process as you go is so important, and just loving yourself from the inside out. I mean, I went from a place of not even wanting to be in pictures to that's my life now. I have to be in pictures and be on the internet. And I've been on live video for 2 years now, but the Sarah that was suffering with all those things in the past would never do that. And I hear people all the time say, I just want to be like you. And I'm like, you are like me. You just haven't brought it out yet. And you have to take time to do it. And I think people just give up on themselves right when they're on the cusp of something great.
Totally.
Whether it's their nutrition or even like entrepreneurs like us, like you just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other. So everybody that's listening, you'll get to where you're trying to go, but you got to understand it's a process and you probably need help getting there.
Yeah, totally. So, okay. So with that, if someone wanted to reach out to you for help, where could they find you?
Well, I mostly live over on Facebook. That probably shows my age, but I do some Instagram, but Facebook, you can find me at facebook.com. The Sarah Hall is my hashtag. Or my /, and I have a community there where I've got almost 2,000 members. So that's kind of fun. And then I have a blog that's at sarahdhall.com/blog. And I write a lot about my personal story and my clients, and it's kind of an outlet for me. My before and after pictures are on there if anybody wants to look at them and see where I came from and learn about it. Yeah, that's probably the two most common places.
Okay, great. So you'll send me those links so I can put them in the show notes.
I will.
And so thank you so much for your time. I think this was a great conversation. And are you going to be in Arizona or no?
Yes.
Okay, so I will see you in Arizona.
Yes, I'll be there.
Sarah, have a great day.
Okay, bye.
Another great conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If anything that we said resonated with you and inspired you to take action today, please screenshot the episode, throw it up on your story, tag me, tag Sarah. Let us know that something we said started something in you to go and make your health a better version of what it currently is, mentally or physically, whatever that is. If you're not already subscribed to the Tips with Toni podcast, please subscribe. That way you can get notified when our new episodes come out. So usually every Monday and every Wednesday. But also subscribing to the podcast allows other people to find the podcast and help spread my message of helping you get healthy one bite at a time. If you feel really, really like you're like, love this episode, you've been loving everything I've been giving you, please provide a 5-star rating and write a positive review. It would mean so much to me. Regardless of what you choose to do, I so appreciate you listening. And the best thing that you could do, not only share this, but is to take action. And if you do that, I will be happy. I'll never ask you for anything ever again. So take action today. Go work on those small changes that lead to big changes over time. And if you have any questions whatsoever, feel free to email me, tipswithtoni@gmail.com. Find me on Instagram at tips_with_Toni. Also, the TipsWithToni_podcast is now also on Instagram. If you're not part of the Facebook group, join the group. I'm going to provide the links for my group and also the links for Sarah's blog. And anything else that you need to know to get your health and wellness started, headed, improved in the right direction. As always, this is Toni Marinucci. Thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you soon.